Good morning, good afternoon and good evening wherever you are, and welcome to the latest episode of the My Coach Ben podcast. In this episode we'll be looking at a thing or things that are vital in our professional and private lives. With these things, culture, accountability and even teams can't take shape, and without them things are basically empty and lack definition. Ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, in this episode, we will be unravelling the topic of boundaries. Thanks again everyone for stopping by, and welcome to the latest episode from here in not so sunny, more windy Portugal. And as usual, a huge thanks for the continued support for the podcast with the likes and views from the latest episode, and of course for following the blog, which you can find on Facebook, Instagram and X. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast. So what are boundaries? As you know, I like a definition, and therefore here is the definition of boundary or boundaries as defined by the Oxford English Dictionary. Boundary: a line which marks the limits of an area, a dividing line. A county boundary: a river marks the boundary between the two regions as a modifier, a boundary wall. Or what we're going to concern ourselves with: boundaries, a limit of something abstract, especially a subject or sphere of activity, a community without class or political boundaries. Boundaries are the, let's say, abstract limits which we all have, and they govern how we conduct ourselves in our personal and private lives, as well as our professional life. And it's something that applies not just to a person, but it also applies to a team or an organisation. Everybody and everything has to have limits, and these can be the limits to what you're going to tolerate. They can be the limits of your reach in an organisation, let's say the market that you want to operate in. It can also be a code of conduct. This also defines boundaries and limits of behaviour and conduct, let's say. So let's look at boundaries in the workplace. So establishing and upholding boundaries within a workplace are integral to maintaining a productive work environment. So boundaries help to establish clear expectations and, as I just said, limits between colleagues, making sure everyone feels welcome and respected in their workspace. And boundaries may also cover aspects such as, personal space, workload distribution, communication processes, or confidentiality and policies, as we said before, such as a code of conduct. And here are some examples, which can give rise to an inclusive and robust application of boundaries. So first, defining roles and responsibilities. So clearly establishing boundaries begins with outlining each employee's roles and responsibilities within an organisation to ensure that everyone understands who their responsibilities lie with. And defining each role and responsibility allows everyone in the organisation to understand who does what task or who makes what decision. Honouring individual boundaries. So everyone has personal boundaries when it comes to privacy, space and lifestyle, and co-workers and managers have to respect these personal restrictions by not prying into personal matters or invading someone's personal private space, at least not without invitation. Establishing appropriate communication channels, and this will use appropriate communication tools and different forms of interaction for work-related discussions, so using email or project management software, etc. These facilitate collaboration and break areas for reserved or personal conversations. Encouraging life balance. So supporting life balance helps employees establish healthy boundaries between work and personal life. And last, and definitely not least, is to set clear expectations. And when you set clear expectations, this will prevent miscommunication and conflict, something we've discussed recently. And when you define working hours, response times for emails, messages which are sent out, task completion, availability, expectations, etc. These manage boundaries efficiently, and they help to make work commitments manageable. From the coaching perspective, boundaries are a topic that are rarely discussed in terms of personal development and or indeed in coaching sessions. However, boundaries are crucial in order to ensure that any target, culture or concept, value, change, whatever the topic is actually going to be effectively delivered. And here are 5 questions that can help us to define and implement effective boundaries. How would you define and describe your personal boundaries across various aspects of your life? So that's work, relationships and self-care. Are your current boundaries in line with your values and priorities? And if not, what adjustments might need to be made in order to create healthier boundaries? What situations often cause conflict or difficulty when trying to uphold your boundaries, and why are those? What situations often cause difficulty when trying to uphold your boundaries, and why? How can you effectively communicate and enforce your boundaries while at the same time taking into consideration other people's needs in maintaining positive relationships? What strategies or tools can you implement in your daily routine to guarantee consistent observance and respect of your boundaries? As we've seen, boundaries are essential both in the organisation and on a personal level. In my experience of coaching, whether this being the coach or the coachee, boundaries are often overlooked in preference for other, let's say, more sexier topics such as strategy, implementation, development. But none of these things can actually be achieved without defining clear boundaries that support their achievement and delivery. The absence of defined boundaries just leads to a lack of structure that ultimately hinders any achievement that you wish to make. And boundaries can make or break any initiative. They allow for focus and make unnecessary diversions less likely. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for stopping by, and remember to like and subscribe, tell your friends, tell your colleagues, and let's continue to grow the community together. Follow the blog on Facebook, Instagram and X. So again, a huge thanks for the support, and until next time everyone, peace. Your Coach Ben. So until next time guys, thanks very much again, and last but definitely not least, to set clear expectations. So